You are listening to River West Radio on WXRWLP 104.1 FM Milwaukee. Support for this program comes from Collectivo Coffee, locally owned since 1993. Collectivo roasts coffees by hand daily in River West. Also offering letterbox fine tea and made from scratch food and bakery. Cafe menus, hours, and upcoming events are available at collectivocoffee.com. Welcome to Cinema Fireside. Thank you, everyone, certainly for listening. It's an action-packed evening, and we have Victor, my man. How you doing? Victor's walked in through the door. We have a surprise guest, which is a complete irony, since he was the man who spearheaded this effort called Cinema Fireside and enabled its sustaining life. He so happens to be on stage, Mr. Gabe Van Handel. He's back in town just for a few days, and he is actually here. And my man informs me that he could have run the board, but psychologically I responded that that's not essentially happening because I am now running it. And, you know, these things shift in life. It's very kind of you, Victor. We stopped at Fuel Cafe and got a water as well. So thank you. So, yeah, times change. I don't want to be a secondary character in my own life. So Gabe has got his headphones on and is remaining respectfully in the shadows. Tom has now arrived, and another colleague lingers on the periphery right here up on stage. So it's a great atmosphere in River West tonight. You can really tell that autumn's coming in with the orange sunlight now. It's not the big, bright boldness of a summer high noon. And I was on the Woodland Trail and noticed the light. So I want to, we've got our listeners, which is absolutely fantastic. And then we have the vibe out on the street, the people that filter in and out and give our lives and our minutes texture and so forth. I think it was Friday night I had the good fortune to, on a very special occasion, watch Symbiopsychotaxiplasm take one. No scrubs allowed. Certainly you have to be of the highest intellectual and spiritual echelon to take part in something like that, most certainly. So, definitely. It's a great film, directed by William Greaves. Fantastic film about making films, shot on 16 color, Central Park, late 60s, released early 70s. If you're really into the intellectual side of cinema, tangled with the aesthetic realm, Symbiopsychotaxiplasm Take One is your deal, and also The American Dreamer. I know we speak about this a lot, but it's Dennis Hopper and Taus, early 70s, editing the last movie. And I want to say what's brilliant about Mr. Hopper is that while he was going around seeking financing for the last movie, he was actually writing a script about seeking money for the last movie, so that was very meta, very smart. That he would again entangle his own life into professional speculative professional circumstances, which is just great because you don't want to be a secondary character in your own life. You want to be on the primary stage because I'm telling you, when it's all over, Gabe? Is there someone that's my man sitting down there. I was wondering what was going on. I see like this head with headphones bobbing up and down kind of below the mixing board and seeing what's... I'm actually surrounded by 4 good colleagues right now on this stage. I'm very blessed in life, very fortunate. And I was actually at a cookout, and I was talking business with this dude. Very nice guy, very strong gentleman, writing screenplays, and I just don't get into small talk. So it was very nice talking business with him. Gabe gets a kick out of that one, absolutely. So yeah, what a wonderful life. Someone's entering via a bicycle right now. Excellent. Yes, you are. A little bit stuffy here. Quinn, is there any action on that fan? We'll see. We're kind of that. Oh, thank you, Quinn, very much. Quinn is quiet but strong. How you doing? Not sure who you are. What's that? Oh, hey, man. Sweet. Thank you for joining us. Wow, that's entirely amazing. That's entirely amazing. Yeah, wow. Well, Quinn, you got a great ma, and Ma, you got a great son, man. This is mega happening. Too, Quinn, I wouldn't have a heart attack, but I ain't gonna stop you either, man, because that cool breeze is gonna feel good. Yeah, we're like, all of a sudden you get like, man, am I in a sardine can or not? And I think Quinn is gonna take us out of that situation. Now, a gentleman had come in and said these maniacal monologues would be the cause of an entire downfall of a radio show. He didn't say that at all. But I thought that was neat to bring that in. So now there's like about 6 of us hanging out here. People texting in when the show's on, stuff like that. And so it's a great day, man. Gabe is bemused. He's moving his his eyebrows up and down. Fell asleep to radio dramas on Sunday night. Just fantastic stuff. Out like a light at some point. So that was good. And what else? Oh, I would like to say, I was discussing something today about 3 different types of people. From the people that are entirely lost to the people that are go-getters and the people that are in neutral. You can't hang out with go-getters because they're doing it 24 hours a day. They're running businesses. Let's just take filmmaking and so forth in particular. They're flying all around the country, doing their stuff, making their dough. They're not going to be hanging out. They're on 24 hours a day. Quinn, thanks a million, man. That's rocking. And then there's people that it just ain't going to happen, and then there's neutrals where they're not going to like make you do stuff. They're good to hang around with. You can write your screenplays and all of that stuff, and you can be yourself. So it's, there you go. You have your choice of the 3 echelons, the 3 genres of peopleage you can accustom yourself to. What a wonderful life it is. We are certainly blessed with our health. And I know that Gabe has an extemporaneous mentality that's on go. And he studies, he thinks, he can do what I cannot. He has a very clear mind when it comes to cinematic data. And he owns that realm. And all of our circuitry is built different in life, and his specialty is in that realm of this immense, dense labyrinth, but a very clear labyrinth of data. The man's good at getting it out. He can do it. No ifs, ands, or buts, no ums, ahs, or anything. This man rolls, like grease on ice, so you can't mess with that, most certainly. So what I do is I take up maybe about like 10 to 12 minutes, and then Gabe will roll, and then I'll think, well, should I say something or shouldn't I? I could work on the journal, make some notes, so on and so forth. So as human beings, we have these thoughts that drift on, what should we do and what should we do with our lives and so on and so forth. And to give a certain amount of meaningful contemplation to that, if you would just remain in the present for a few. Just to be digressive, there are people that can do something in a day and a half that someone couldn't even do in 5 years because of their circuitry. So those souls are certainly appreciated, most definitely. Okay, I think that we're about ready to roll. With Gabe, who was very kind enough to join us on stage here. It's very exciting. In fact, I just want to say for the morning reading, I'm reading Ann Truitt's Day Journal. I believe that's it. But most impactfully is the collected stories of Ray Bradbury, Volume 3, from 44 to 45. Just an exceptional collection of his early work. And this guy is extremely prodigious. And I know that we ally him with science fiction, but that's not true. He has written fantastic stories in a greater spectrum of circumstances. This first one takes place at a film studio with the death of a screen star when the lights go out, someone poisoned her, and so on and so forth, and the desk sergeant is involved, and it's through his eyes, and so on and so forth. But I mean, it's just, life is beautiful. You have to take control of your life. You have to think it out, and it can be really, really good. Surround yourself with the right people, because consciously you can be big and bold and say, well, they're not influencing me, but subconsciously they are. The subconscious is taking all this in. So, well, whatever, do what you got to do. That said, Gabe is on a microphone, a yellow one. Gabe, welcome to your world.
Welcome back.
Okay, I'm going to crank you up a little bit. Are you talking, brother?
I'm all cranked up.
Are you?
Yep, all cranked up.
Okay, welcome to Milwaukee, my man.
It's so great to be back. The words don't describe. We've done shows like this before with visiting and with even coming back, moving back. But man, this is just surreal. It's been a surreal couple of days. Just driving, just the last 20 minutes or so before I came into the studio to do the show with you guys, I ran into literally 5 important figures in my life who, just even some of them are acquaintances. Some people are, good dear friends of mine. We had a cookout today. I saw a lot of good, people that I still communicate with. But man, to see people in the flesh with your eyes and to just be near them, it's just been great. There's certain neighborhoods that just have a certain intensity. They have they are the place that I've lived. They are the place where I've walked, the place where I've thrived, the place where I've learned, the place where I've fallen down, place where I've learned, place where I've remained static in some cases, and they've been my home for many, many, many years. Places I've come to, places I've left. So it's very, very interesting, very good, very powerful to be back. So this is a great city, but yeah, I live in Kansas City currently for at least a few more years. But I do plan on returning eventually someday. It's been interesting to discuss the plans of the future with my friends and stuff like that. Some of them may not be living here when I return, and that's fine. The point, I have a daughter that lives here, so that's objective number one. That's the most important. So, but there's a lot of cinema going on, and that's what our show's about. So, there's I've been continuing my research of various things from the late 1940s post-war cinema, especially British post-war cinema and British cinema during the war, because cinema during the war, especially in Europe, is very tricky because you've got Axis and Allies, and you've got cinema that's extremely propagandistic for the war, and you've got cinema that's extremely propagandistic against the war in the States that didn't want us to join the war effort. There were a lot of people that wanted us to stay homebound, that didn't want us to join in, and there were a lot of people that said it was inevitable that we were going to join the war and that we had to rally anti-Nazi support, and we had to rally anti-fascist support, and we had to rally this message of defeating our enemy, and we had to. So there was just this warlike fervor. Even before we went to war, there was like this sort of poetically propagandistic attitude, and then when we went full in war, there was a lot of propaganda that came out of the studio system, especially at Warner Brothers, where Jack Warner, who was the head of that studio, really was so adamantly pro-involvement, because he was, as many of the studio heads of the studio system in the 1940s, 30s, these great Adolf Zucker, Carl Laemmle, and Jack Warner, among many others, Samuel Goldwyn, Louis B. Mayer, these were emigrated Jews that found great success in the United States, and many of the filmmakers were sending a lot of money home, were trying desperately to get their relatives and friends and family out of occupied areas or soon to be occupied areas, and get them either moved to a safer area or bring them home. So a lot of people during the studio system days of Hollywood were not reaping in great, even though they were making record amounts of money in some cases, they were not living very extravagant lives because most of their money was sent abroad to support, in cases, hundreds of people, and to further evacuate hundreds of people, which is a very expensive effort, especially in a time of war. So during that war, that initial pre-war and immediate position of when we did declare war, cinema changes rapidly in America, but in Britain, they had already undergone the fervor of full war, and the propaganda of the war spirit in British cinema is extremely vigilant, but it's extremely stiff upper lip. So there's just a lot of this, I don't know what to call it except for Britishism that goes on, and their type of war fervor is different than ours in the cinema. But after the war, you have this period of reckoning. And in Germany, there's a film that comes out, and no one talks about the war in film besides in these very oblique terms for many years due to obvious reasons of total and complete surrender and Nazism and the fog of war and the fog of time. And a film comes out in 1959 called The Bridge, which is the first film in German society to really examine the fervor. And it's an avant-garde film, but it's also a very straightforward film. It has it's in narrative terms, I would compare it to certain aspects of the film If, which is a Lindsay Anderson film from 1968, I believe. Hey, dude,
I've always wanted to see that.
Mark, need to see that film because that's an artistic masterwork. That's a stroke of pure genius. If is a film that continues to be controversial because its violence remains just as potent as it did the day it was made. In fact, it's more potent today because of societal factors that have changed in the 1990s. Since the film was made in the 60s, it was considered sort of an abstract work of fantasy, and today it's looked at as this very dangerous, literally dangerous work of art, and almost worth banning because it is so dangerous and unruly and truly potent a work of art. But The Bridge has this sort of dreamlike way of flowing from one scene to another, but it also has this very sober reality of the fervor of war and the fervor of the Nazi spirit and the fervor of the German people and the fervor of belief, and the potency of belief and mass belief and group belief. And the film does this really beautiful and eloquent, has this eloquent way of really showing the poetry of belief, of pride, of the group, of even fascism. And it shows their ignorance and how they just get swept up into this belief of pride and this belief in duty and this belief in themselves and blind belief. It doesn't come out of anything really pure, and it just shows the cost of that. And it is not just a wagging finger of the German people at the German people. It is a look at an examination of that in any case, in any instance of where that can lead. So it's a very interesting film. But in Japan, after the war, Kurosawa makes a couple of films that looks at the devastation that is left in the wake. Luckily, there was something left. But there's one film called One Wonderful Sunday, which is not similar to most Kurosawa films. It's very gentle. It's very light. It's very offhanded. It's very simple. It's very cute. And it's very, I wouldn't say it's poetic. It's just very matter-of-fact, and it's about a couple, an aging, a slowly aging couple that just have between themselves a few, like less than 100 yen, which is not much money even back then. And they want to spend a Sunday together on their one day off. And there isn't much left of their city. And it was made like very shortly after the war. But they are just completely in love, and they try to make the best of it. And it is so different from every other Kurosawa film I've ever seen. And I highly recommend that to, I think films about war itself, in some cases, they're great. I love war films and I love action films, but I really love post-war films that look at the cost of, once the war is over, what's left. The Bridge has this ability of the fact that the bridge was made after the war, but it clearly is looking back, even though it takes place during. It has this strange ability to weave time frames, so it's a very good film. One Wonderful Sunday is just an absolute masterwork of Kurosawa, and I'm not a Kurosawa fan, but that is, I think, one of his 5 best films, as is Stray Dog, which was also made after the war. But you have Italian neorealism, which comes out of post-war cinema.
Right, Rossellini.
Yep. So you've got the triangle of Italian cinema that comes out after the war. And it's not like all of a sudden these guys just all like independently. It's not like punk rock where like dudes in different corners of the world just kind of had the same idea, and for some reason, like, hundreds and thousands of bands were making punk rock before punk rock was called punk rock. It was called garage rock. And it's existed for a long time. It's just no one put it on a major label, and people didn't remember it. People didn't start listening to it in large groups, and it didn't get played on the, it just didn't become popular until 1976, 1977, and it didn't get a label put on it where it became branded and it became a money-making device. Punk rock existed before punk rock, just like the ideas behind certain waves of cinema, like the French New Wave, the Japanese New Wave, the Italian Wave, comes out of like these components that are already there. It's just the funding to get the means to make these films. The films actually getting made and distributed and seen and remembered. That's the key, is remembered and talked about and written about and copied. And once that starts to happen, then you have this thing of like, oh yeah, that was the thing that happened, and I was there, and it was, like there's all these other things that are happening, and people were there, but because there's no books written about the things and the people that were there, like whatever. So, you have the 3 major figures of Italian neorealism, which comes out of this idea of sort of a pointed, dreamlike but very technically astute type of reality, where you have like extremely like this almost like potent crystal clear cinematography. So you have on the one hand technical precision, extreme technical precision, but you also have a roughness to it. So it has this sort of surreal quality, almost impressionistic. So you balance the act between like a rawness of material but a precision of skill that gives it like a damaged, lived in humanistic feel. And that's just the technical attributes of the aesthetics of just the visual language of Italian of what a lot of scholars would say is Italian neorealist cinema. But you have Vittorio De Sica,
Bicycle Thieves,
Visconti, and
Rossellini.
Roberto Rossellini, who some people would tell you that each of those 3 figures are the most important. But they're all important for different reasons. And I think anyone that has a deep interest in poetic cinema, European cinema, the history of cinema, art cinema especially, just meaningful, complex, potent, thought-provoking films, I highly recommend these. I don't think that they're essential or these films are more important than those films, but they've left an impression on me. Mark, what would you say your thoughts? I mean, like Bicycle Thieves, there's a reason that Bicycle Thieves is put in this, would you say echelon or pantheon? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's within the canon of the ultimate revered cinema is Bicycle Thief. We have actually a very full stage now. Oh man! All right, yeah, we're gonna need. Anyway, there's various reactions from laughter to apprehension to indifference to amusement. Another guest just walked by. Can I am allowed to say your name? Okay, Sam Bracey has also joined us up on stage, a great man with a particular vision that is going to definitely come to fruition through determined dexterity. Wouldn't you say that's the case, sir? Did you hear any of that?
I did, and I'd say yes.
Okay, great.
I would want to do that.
Okay, great. And so yes, for post-war Italian neorealism, the standout, of course, is Bicycle Thieves, and we all pick these iconic statues, so forth, and like with the French New Wave, it's Truffaut's The 400 Blows, shared with Godard's Breathless, and so forth. But Bicycle Thieves is predominantly that North Star of Italian neorealism, post-war Italian neorealism, which is it goes hand in hand, obviously. So another one of the great revered ones, Germany Year Zero, and
yes.
Paisan,
Germany Year Zero.
I have to revisit that because I find it to be a kind of a cantankerous cinema that I didn't buy into, but I did buy into Bicycle Thieves, and I've seen that over the years. There's more of a natural fluidity with that film compared to like Bresson and Rossellini, which I just can never get into. And what's funny about, take for instance Bresson with Pickpocket, one of the most revered art films of all time, and I return to it. It's within Schrader's triptych in his book with Carl Theodor Dreyer, Ozu, and Bresson. And I actually do have that book, but
who are all film directors?
Yes, exactly. And I'll take Ozu over Kurosawa any day of the week. And actually, in the Sight and Sound, every 10 years they release a list of the top 250 films ever by that the film that is most mentioned by the most amount of critics. No one has to say it's their best film, but if it's mentioned the most times, then it becomes the best film, which is Vertigo, and then which displays Citizen Kane, and then obviously Ozu's Tokyo Story is like number 2 or 3. It's
on the other list. It's like there's the filmmakers list, and then there's the film critics list. So there's actually 2 Sight and Sound 250s.
Yeah.
But on the filmmakers list, Tokyo Story rose to number 2 out of like. I mean, it's always been kind of in like the top 20 or the top 10, but like they're sort of made it sound like out of nowhere, like it's like just this like Hail Mary throw, and like it's like the Flutie Orange Bowl touchdown or something like that. Like it just saved the game.
Yeah,
like made like NFL history or something in film. And
well, the thing of it is, at least this is a fair list because again, it is each critic weighing in, and again, the most times that a film is mentioned gives it the highest rank. No one ever said any of these films are the greatest films, and which is ridiculous because it's obviously very subjective.
Exactly.
And I mean, and some of the greatest films of all are completely they're barely on the list. It's all a shell game. It's all a hoodwink. It really is. It's an elitist thing. This was democratically achieved. This list. I'm not knocking the way this list was conjured. That's not what I'm knocking.
If you're gonna like lists, this is a good list to like, but it's still just a list.
Yeah, it was democratically achieved.
List, yeah.
But as in the films that are being picked, it's ridiculous. It's elitist. It's absolutely senseless. And there's many incredible films that are not even on the list. It's a joke. And also, I'll tell you another thing. It's also an industry. All the books are an industry, using abstracts such as good and great, and very dismissive of other films and filmmakers. I mean, it goes across any kind of genre, whether it's political, social, or whatever. It's all elitism because only the most sophisticated get to write these books and get to be published. And then there's a tendency to the fear factor where if you disagree or do not ally yourself with these higher interests, you are dismissed as as primordial, as a primitive, and so on and so forth. So it's all a sham. It's all a sham.
But at times in music criticism, that sort of underlying inability to weigh in with the masses is usually what brings in the next wave or type of criticism, is usually undoing the last 20 years where someone comes along and says, no, that's all crap. This is nonsense. You all agree, you've all read each other, you all read each other, and you're all just repeating each other, and that's nonsense. So every about 25 years or so, there's a music critic that comes along, or a film critic, who does upend and does speak some sort of
and Gabe,
humectant truth,
yes.
and that single voice,
Yeah.
or those
Yeah.
two voices of absolute no, that
Yeah.
elitism is nonsense, and you may all genuinely believe these opinions, but these are becoming static, and you need a fresh perspective, even if
Yeah.
it's not one of youth. That is often misunderstood. It's not this young voice or this new voice or these brash new voices. In many
Yeah.
cases, it's actually an older, educated person who's been watching and have been observing and reading along with everyone else, who finally has enough. And that's, look
Yeah.
at what happened with the French New Wave.
Yeah.
Lester Bangs was a huge part of that in music criticism.
What I wanted to point out, though, Gabe, while you were still on that, this is kind of like the definition of a dialectic, with the thesis, the antithesis, and the synthesis. So there is what Gabe said, there's a particular sentiment. Then a quarter century later, that sentiment is upended, and a new sentiment is arrived at, which is the synthesis. So that is actually covered quite well. That goes back to actually, obviously, to the Greeks, and that's why I say, like with Sam, always reading, like the art of now I don't even know the art of the art of the dramatic former. So now my mind is getting muddy, but it examines all those basic principles of drama quite well. It's probably here's an abstract. One of the greatest books, an elitist abstract, greatest books on writing, and that came out, I believe, in the 40s. So if you're a writer, and because of my memory situation, I think it's The Art of Dramatic Writing, it's called. It's the fundamental book on dramatic writing. So anyone who, and it's not, and actually it is not an elitist concept, because I'm telling you, the texture and the density and the exploration of dramatic concepts in their birth and creation, and to sustain these, he proves the substance of these ideas. So it's not in just these a newer book where it's just these brief skirmishes with ideas, but rather these ideas are actually proven through rational exploration. The Art of Dramatic Writing would be the essential book to start. What it's kind of like, The Theater and Its Double by Artaud, and more recently David Mamet's Theater, that these are essential books, just like a Sid Field, and then on the most populist, the conclusion of that is Save the Cat. But on the academic end of the bookend is the Sid Field series. So the Art of Dramatic Writing is so fundamentally key to read. And that does give those concepts, what Gabe was just talking about, using music criticism as an example of a dialectic, as, again, a sentiment that is proposed, and then a new generation challenges that, and then there's a synthesis, ultimately, of these ideas.
I am really, I constantly am excited to see where the Sight and Sound is going to go, because there's a certain joy and a certain type of there's a very straightforward and very logical joy that I get from numbers and lists and a certain type of, like, a presentation of a beginning and an end of these artistic criticisms on things that are as subjective as movies. And when you compile lists of subjective arguments, there's a certain amount of information that's presented, that there's a beginning and an end of a list, there's a beginning and an end of a book that's a compilation of reviews, and within that is a certain body that is like, I'm going to include this, but I'm not going to include this. And I like to have all the, and at the end of it, I like to have taken in, at least considered the information of that title, that entry, as a consideration for a film to watch and a film to consider great for some reason that a bunch of other film critics who love films, who enjoy watching films, who want to share that love with other people, some of them do, some of them don't, and some people that are embittered and angry, some people that are joyful and playful, and some that do it for a living because that's the profession they fell into, and others that do it because that's what they always wanted to do. They always wanted to be a film critic, and they always wanted to be published in certain publications or have a certain kind of peer. And when you look at at many of the contemporary film critics that I really admire, that I for many years got to read their coverage of Cannes, of Sundance, of Toronto, of Telluride, of some of these great film festivals where you hear about these recurring titles, and they include them and they put a certain grade on them, or they put a certain like number grade, or there's a certain entry of like, I think this movie has this amount of goodness to it, and eventually these entries just start entering in, and you're like, well, this person, this person, this person whose opinions I love reading about, consider this really worth my time. They're telling me that this is really worth my time. So I love that Sight and Sound list because I've
well, let me ask you this, Gabe.
I've gotten so many films from that list that, yes, I've like read about or heard about or known about, and have like, oh, I'll get around to that. Oh, I'll get around to that. Oh, I've even seen it at the library. Oh, I've even seen it at River West Film and Video. Oh, I've even seen it at a friend's house. I've even rented it and then didn't watch it. When that list came out in 2012, when I had just moved down to Florida, and I was like getting a little more serious about watching some films on that list when it had just come out, and you and I were talking about, you and Zav and I had been talking about this list, and I was like going down and watching as many on like the top 100 as I could at that time. There's some films I saw in there that really changed my life. And there is a lot of this pretentious art house international garbage that I just was watching as academic exercises in film school rhetoric that are good to know about, good to see, good to use in terms of challenging the way the mind, like reading great works of literature that are essential for an English major or an international literature major, or someone studying like 17th century French literature. There's a lot of works that they're going to have to read that they're going to love, and there's a lot of stuff they're going to have to read that they're not going to love. So to beef up the language of cinema, even watching films that I abhor, that I detest, that I hate, is so important, because even at the very least, films that I can't stand in any way, shape, or form, that I still recognize as great, important, profound, and significantly amazing works of art, I'm so glad that I've gotten to see that I spent the time to watch something that made me think, even if all I thought about was how much I disagree with the film, how much I hate the film, but I'm still watching form and substance.
Well, which is interesting because, first of all, I don't want to invoke that word, so on and so forth, and I don't get into films I don't like. You operate with discretion, you can hit a 900, believe you me. And there's actually great films like, again, and I'm contradicting myself by using abstracts, but like Eric Romaire's My Night at Maud's, with the conversation and the way it's photographed in black and white. I don't even care what the conversation is about, but it's like looking at a great painting where you're emotionally jarred in a very, very extreme way. There's that it's the Stendhal effect, I believe, and that same can happen with cinema, where you just are looking at particular compositions, and it's not even the content of the doings on screen, but you somehow, I remember. Just like I said, with the conversation in My Night at Maud's, and the crisp black and white, and even I remember being younger and watching Persona, and no longer being able to pay attention toward the end of what these two women were speaking about, but in the way that it was so aesthetically composed or aesthetically brought forth, where what you were receiving was of the ultimate psychological and emotional impact. So I don't care about films as a whole, but how we can examine them in aggregate, as in identifying their component parts just as component parts and enjoying them and reaping the rewards for, even if these minuscule endeavors called scenes or even shots within the scenes are appreciated like works of art at an art gallery. So never be limited by primitive thinking with film. Always take it all the way, my man.
Well, I mean, because there's objective things I look at that I can't help, and my mind wanders when I watch movies, and there's subjective things that I'm like just blown away with how moved I am at a film and how engrossed or entertained, involved, and because there's objective things that I like really appreciate even during a film that I'm not into it. I'm like, wow, this film doesn't work for me. There's still a lot that I can really appreciate during a film, and I'm really grateful for that. A movie like Stray Dog is really interesting because I was never a fan of Kurosawa's major milestones as a filmmaker. There's a lot of his movies that I just never completely immersed myself in. I find them a little too caught between worlds, but there's something about the wild, really, really just this potent poetry of the editing in that film, of the way that he is telling sort of this seamless thought that has this seamless amount of action and this seamless amount of directive that just keeps going, and there's just unrelenting terror. There's something about that film that just feels so present, and that was a pivotal moment in my film watching. The films of Abbas Kiarostami are also
an adult filmmaker.
Those are adult films for adult. Yes, those are absolutely mature, thoughtful, very complex films that leave a deep impression on the viewer. Close Up, The Wind Will Carry Us, A Taste of Cherry. Those were like almost unparalleled works of art, and the fact that that his movies have these parallels, or they have these similarities, but they all exist in their own single universe. Those are the kinds of films that truly, I think, just have this sort of really potent, pure, otherworldly impact, and I just can't get enough of that. Lately, I wasn't sure if we were going to do a show this week, and I hadn't really had time to watch a whole lot of. I'm in the middle of 3 films right now, and I hadn't finished any of them, so I didn't really have anything new to bring to the table this week. One of them is quite long. I'm in the middle of watching Jacques Rivette's Out One, which is like
10 hours,
which is 10.5 hours long, and I'm like 5.5 hours into it, and it is on Netflix, by the way. That is like a film. That is the film for film lovers right there. That is like this lost film that was like never released on DVD. It was like out of print for all these years. It was banned for a long time because it was considered this really like shocking, dangerous, revolutionary, like, where it was just like one of these very like people considered it vulgar because it's just in my mind that just it just, the way that it's looked at nowadays is that it was just such a potent work of art that people were frightened of it, as is the case with a lot of Rivette's work. Anyway, it's about a troupe of avant-garde theater actors, but the filmmaking and the style and the story of it it takes place around a lot of revolutionary antics that were happening in France around the time. So it blends nonfiction and fiction. It blends sort of like the real life events with this sort of the line between documentary and fiction is very blurred, and there's a lot of improvisation. There's a lot of stuff that appears to be improvised that isn't, and there's stuff that appears to be very heavily scripted that is in fact improvised. So that his line and his ability to make these really just really unparalleled works of art is really amazing. And there's a lot of French films from around that era, later into the French New Wave, that are really good. Celine and Julie Go Boating from 1974, which is just like this surrealist, potent dream of a film, which like I avoided seeing for years and years and years until I read about it on the Sight and Sound, and then I was like, okay, maybe it became available to me, and I watched it, and sure enough, entertainment central, mind central, like just cinema central.
Okay, I'd have to check that out again. I've seen that I ally that with Claire's knee,
Yes.
Celine and Julie go boating. So I'd have to revisit that. It never stuck out at. It just didn't stick out for me. So, but I mean, with the French New Wave, I remember in Cahiers du Cinema, there was like at least like something like 165 auteurs identified at one point, working filmmakers in that.
That were specifically identified by them as being
correct.
These like authors of film.
Right. So when we identify like the Holy Five, which is Truffaut, Godard, Rivette, Romer, and
Chabrol, I think.
Yeah, Chabrol. Those five. Just think about it.
And then on the outside, there's Varda, kind of.
Yeah, it's exponential. You know that, and what were their works like? And do we have really any access to them? So we always deal. Kind of like the iconic atmosphere can only hold the weight of so many icons, that's what I'm saying. There can only
too many cooks,
there
dude.
There
can
only be so many Britney Spears. There cannot be. There's only so much money that can be allocated in advertising and energy put into promotion. So you can't have 10 Britney Spears.
Well, but like these circles of influence, like what I like about these movements, like Italian neorealism, French New Wave, and the Japanese New Wave, and other film movements, is that the inspiration. I was, talking about this earlier today, and about this influence and competition. There's like this sphere of like influence and competition among peers, where like they're watching the work of like, we're all being influenced by these social and cultural events that are happening at the time around us, and we're making films about these very real things that are happening socially around us in various ways, both in terms of like personal dramas and larger melodramas and political dramas, et cetera, et cetera. And certain styles, there are certain films that are markers, like where there's just a style, there's a form, there's a way of presenting a certain a complexity, and as Mark says, adult movies for adults.
Correct.
Where there is a certain just type of this is a mature, intelligent, thought-provoking film that should be paid attention to.
Yeah, I mean, I could pull out Sidney Lumet's Prince of the City.
Yes.
That's an adult.
That's an adult film, just because it's just very straightforward. It's not playing games. It's just a very serious movie, and it's just very good. So if you look at like the Italian neorealists, where it's like they're not necessarily of the same exact style, but there are definite similarities between them, and there's definite influence, but there's also this verve of competition that we now know after years, and after they've discussed their cinema and they've discussed each other's cinema and they've discussed other factors of each other's cinema, that there was this that there's a certain type of competitiveness to keep up or to outdo or to exist in cohabitation with. In the French New Wave, that was very true of the fact that they were all esteemed, brilliant film writers and film critics and film lovers. And when, at the same time, it was like a mutual decision, like, I have to start making films. If I want cinema, the state of cinema in France, to change and to be what I aspire and dream and hope that it can be, I think I could actually make that dream come true, because I actually think I can do a better job than these films that I'm seeing, based on some of the hopes and dreams and realities of the films that the French cinema was once providing. And I would like to do things that have never been done in any cinema. So that was like a special place in time, in that they had the resources, means, availability, and they had a body of people that sort of allowed them to do that and went to go see these films and supported them, because they were basically like, the first films of Godard are like just handheld films about, just shot on the street with this newly improved technology, shot in these newly mobile ways that had never been done or never distributed to masses of people before in that way, and with that type of energy and that lack of resource before. Really independent films in the truest sense of the word. And then you have a group of people that all decide, we can all do this. Like, he doesn't have to be the only one. We're all film critics and we're all film lovers, and we can all contribute to this together. So you have Truffaut, Godard, you have all of them making films in, yes, their own unique way and their own unique style with their own unique handprint, but they're all in it together at the same time in the same place, and you have a movement.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting period in film.
In that, you have something to say?
I just wanted to ask a question, very quick. You mentioned Sight and Sound, which is a very prestigious magazine, and I have a list of their, top 100 films. I've gone over it and over it. Just one question: how do you account for the fact that the number one film was Vertigo?
Well, I just
A
did
movie
it
that
was,
you don't like.
My man, it's no. I like it, but I don't like it that much.
Yeah.
That list was.
But why Vertigo? I mean, why do you think it made?
My man, I'm
that
about
list?
to tell you.
Okay.
These critics were given a list, and everyone was to write down the films that they thought were the best.
Ten of them.
They're 10 best.
Yeah, and
They're
it
10
didn't
favorite
matter.
films.
10
It didn't matter the rank, but the films that, whether it was at the bottom of the list, the top, the films that appeared most,
got
on each list got it. So no one said it itself
This
was
is
the
the
best.
absolute best. Yeah, it's just frequency.
Yeah,
It's
it was
mathematics.
It was
It's
the
mathematics.
frequency. It was
It's just
mathematics. That's all.
It's just
That's
mathematics
all.
of frequency.
It's Vertigo can be seen just as a routine procedural. Yes, there's great color and all of that stuff.
Okay,
but
let's not get into this. I mean, we can, but we've done this
Yeah.
before a million
Let's not.
times. Let's not, please.
The only
You want it,
thing
it's fine, but
I would say of all the films, now you've mentioned these experimental films, I've never heard of half of them. I haven't heard of two.
Well, you got to do your homework, my man.
I know. However, let me say this: why something like Vertigo, which has none of those qualities?
Okay, because
But,
it's a populist list.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
Yes, it
those
is.
are popular
Critics-
film critics. Yes.
It's all pop. The films.
They're filmmakers. They're directors. They're movie stars. They're magazine writers. I would say they're very
Steve,
elitist.
you know what? I never lose sleep at night over this.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I'm
Okay,
not.
all right.
Okay, my man. Can
Is
you
it-
tell us how this list
No,
occurs?
no. It's necessary listening to the ignorant people about these things. No, I'm not a professional of this in this area, in this sector of the.
Well, that you'd be a walking contradiction
But
then.
yeah, because it's necessary remember. Okay, I'm the person with a TV for many years ago. Okay, it's necessary understand the people without the possibilities for the critical comment about the cinema, about the art, about the many things now in the stereotypes of the media. No, it's necessary to speak with these people too. Okay, it's necessary to speak with the people like me. Okay,
With the TV set.
for talk about the reality. Okay, and the sequence of the life. And the possibilities of remember, and the possibilities for to know and for to have the memory, okay, for to find and for to do the art.
Yeah, he's talking more or less about direct cinema, the sequence of reality, in which actually direct cinema supersedes the idea of cinema verite, where cinema verite is where the
We've done
filmmaker
many shows on this
imposes
stuff.
their will on that.
when-
And my
when-
man is talking about almost touching the closest as possible to the sequence of reality.
Yeah, when the people see the movies of the past, of the history, okay, it's necessary to know and be clear, okay, what is the construction of the sequence of the life, okay, what is the history, what is the present, and how is building the future, okay. In this tool, okay, is not necessary the new technologies. It's not necessary the all these things now in our homes, in our society, in our civilization. Okay, it's necessary understand how is building.
Yeah, I would. My man, I wouldn't. You know what?
Sequence of the best
Victor,
movies
Victor,
in the world.
Right. I'd be focused on your skills because you're very skilled, and to lose sleep over something that's out of your control, I wouldn't do it.
True.
How would you say about that,
Well,
Steve?
what you're all saying.
I'd be
then-
saying it into the mic.
Okay, what you're all saying then is that art, cinematic art, should be some kind of a reflection of reality, the real world. Is
No.
that what you're all
It could
saying?
be. It can be. There are no rules. It could be anything.
Yeah,
It's the
there's nothing has
God
to be
gave you an
anything, yeah.
imagination, So
Well,
There's
because
no limits. There's no
some
there's
of
no
rules.
limits.
Some
yeah.
of the most famous films ever made have nothing to do with reality. Like, who cares about the French resistance movement? Even if we still like.
Well, then who
Casablanca.
cares about anything?
Look at Bresson with like a man. Like look at the difference in his cinema between Balthazar,
Right.
A Man Escaped, and Pickpocket.
Right.
Which are completely different styles of cinema. One is like this extremely metaphysical film about the meaning of life and about kindness and existence and who we are as people and living creatures. One is about society and is all this political rhetoric, and one is this incredibly playful film that essentially means nothing.
How about Persona? Now, you mentioned Persona, which is a hauntingly beautiful film, even if it goes nowhere. But it's a film everybody admires. I like it. I own it. I have a copy of it. But then when it's over, you wonder.
You wonder.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder. Yeah.
I'm left thinking,
Yeah,
wow, it's an
a
almost
it's a
perfect
beaut-
film.
I
Thank
wonder
you. It's
where
a
this
beautiful
film-
piece of art.
I'm
Sitting there
wondering where
thinking
this
that
film took me.
Unrivaled almost.
Where did it take you, my man?
I'm not sure.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
So
Should
yeah,
have-
it's yeah. He wants to high five. Good work, Gabe.
Good
so
work,
yeah,
Mark.
I mean, great. I mean, this is redundant. Art. There are no limitations. You can do anything in life, man. You could be president. You could jump off the 40-story floor if you want off a tall building.
Stick
there
to
are
movies.
No, there are
Stick to movies.
And
There
then,
are no
and then when you
limits.
land, you'll definitely have made a work of art.
There you go. Yeah. So with film, Steve, with film,
It's good to be dangerous. It is
What
good
is-
to have not to have
What
no
is
rules.
a work of art?
you do.
You
It's
decide.
undefinable.
You decide.
You decide. Thank you.
There you go.
There
You
you go.
decide.
But you can only decide
I'm
for
not
you.
gonna-
For
I'm
you.
not gonna
You can
give a
only decide
definition.
for you. You can't tell
Yeah.
anyone else
Yeah.
that their idea is wrong. You can't.
Yeah.
That's
So
the whole
Steve,
point.
you've got
It's
100.
not a
my
question
man,
of right or wrong.
my man, you have 120 years of cinema to catch up on. 121.
I don't think so.
I do.
I've seen quite a bit. But anyway,
Not enough.
Well, some of the movies that you mentioned are not available. So anyway, that's beside the point.
That's not even true.
That's not true. It's like you got to,
Okay.
you could be saying, like we always say, man, you talk about all these crops you planted and how they're going to grow and all that, and then unfortunately someone comes along and says, my man, you've planted in the wrong field. Farmer Brown
That's
owns
supposed to
that
be
one."
soybeans, and
Yeah.
you planted
Yeah.
corn.
Yeah, you got to go to the primary source, Steve. The primary source is the well from
Any
which you
means to
drink
see
from.
these films. I stream films. I watch them on small screens. I watch them
This
on big
man
screens.
watches on TV.
I do whatever I have to watch the film so the film can get into my brain. And sometimes there's means that I am not very proud of. There's means that are not great. There's means that are. I don't torrent films anymore because for a long time I was stealing films I was taking films for free from the internet without providing a financial means to get those films. I won't do it anymore. But for years, I don't regret those decisions of having done that because there's thousands of films that I got to see because I did that. But today I have a different decision to make than I did
Which
a couple
is
months
what?
ago. To not steal films. To not
You had a
to not
personal
pirate
reckoning.
films. I just will not pirate films anymore. I
Oh
refuse
man,
to.
I got
Why?
to.
But anyway,
almost time.
I'm glad
We're outta
I
here.
looked up.
Guys, it's been great to be in the studio.
Yeah, it's been incredible. We have about 6-7 people on stage, and it's really fortunate actually, because there's a difference between solitude and loneliness, and to be so fortunate to have so many friends here it's just one would be extremely thankful. I'm going to start cutting mics down. We want to thank everyone for joining us. This has really been a galvanizing experience, and just drink water instead of soda, and that is a heck of a start. We will be on at the same time next week on WXRWLP 104.1 FM Milwaukee. To hear past episodes, visit riverwestradio.com/shows and click Cinema Fireside. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.